Good morning, children. Today we'll take up the next topic after nutrition and respiration. The next topic which we have is transportation. At times it is also referred to as the circulatory system. In circulatory system, again, living beings require circulation of different materials, both good and bad, that is the waste as well as the nutritious matter has to reach respective cells. So, in plants and animals, there are different modes of transportation. This video will take up the transportation which takes place in human beings. Okay. Now, what is the medium of transportation in our body? Standard 9th, if you remember, we have already come across that blood is the main substance which is, or a medium which is used for transporting the different materials. What is blood? Well, blood is defined as a fluid connective tissue. Okay, blood is said to be the fluid connective. Do you remember the different tissues which you have come across in animal in the standard 9 under the section of animal tissue? Yeah, we had learned about epithelial, nervous, muscular, and connective tissue. In connective tissue, we had two different types of tissues. One was blood and the other lymph. Now, blood is a connective tissue which is fluid in nature, and it is composed of, when it is asked what is blood, it is what is it consisting of? It is made up of plasma and cells. Do you remember about these cells? Yeah, we had three different types of cells. Blood cells were of three different types. Which were they? One is RBC, WBC, and platelets. Correct? This we have come across last year. RBC is responsible for transportation of oxygen, mainly responsible for transporting oxygen. WBC is defense of the body. Defense means it is for the protection of the body. And the third is platelet. That was for transporting, that was for the clotting process of the blood. Clotting means when you are injured, blood starts oozing out. But after some time, which is barely from few seconds to few minutes, your blood clots, or it becomes thick, and further flow stops. That is prevented. That is taking place because of the platelet in your body. So blood made up of blood cells, which are three different types, and the second thing which we talked about is plasma. What is plasma? Plasma is the fluid medium, that is blood minus blood cells, is called plasma. And it is which color? Yeah, it is yellowish color, because the blood cells are removed, and blood cells mainly contain, the redness of the blood cells or the blood is because of the RBC. So if the blood cells are removed, RBC is also removed along with it, and hence what is left out is plasma. Is that point clear? And this plasma is responsible for transportation of various substances in your body, like salts, isn't it? Then oxygen, then the nitrogenous waste, carbon dioxide, all this is transported by the plasma. But now the most important question which we come across is, if this blood is a medium for transportation, then there should be a pump to pump this particular blood. So what is the pumping organ which is present in your body? So now we move into the main important part of the transportation system, that is your heart. Okay, now the heart of yours is of the size of your fist. Fist का मतलब क्या हुआ? You fold your palm into a fist, muthi. That is what you call it is in Hindi or Gujarati. So the fist, how big your fist is, approximately your heart is of that particular size. Now this particular heart is muscular, we mentioned, isn't it? Which muscular organ, which muscular tissue do you remember? It is cardiac. So it is cardiac muscles, made up of cardiac muscles. The heart is said to be slightly conical in shape, and slightly towards the left hand side in the center of your chest region. Clear? Okay. Now let us try to understand what the heart is about in detail. This is how your heart will look like. Okay. The heart is actually divided into two different portions. This is your auricles. The upper portions are smaller, whereas the lower portion, this is the lower portion of yours, okay, that is bigger. These two are the lower part, which is comparatively bigger than the upper part, which is smaller. So these two upper portions are called the auricles, and these two lower portions are called the ventricles. Is that point clear? So heart is divided by a transverse septum into the upper part and the lower part. Okay, upper part is smaller region called the auricles, lower is the larger region called the ventricles. At the same time, it is divided by a longitudinal section into the right hand side and the left hand side. So totally your heart will have how many chambers? 4 chambers. Okay, which are the 4 chambers? You have the right atrium, the left atrium, the right ventricle and the left ventricle. So totally 4 chambers are present. Now the right chamber, this right chamber entirely, both the auricles and the ventricles together, this entire chamber is dealing with deoxygenated blood. What do you understand by DO2? Deoxygenated blood means blood without oxygen. Whereas the left hand side of your heart, this complete region, okay, I'll choose a different alternative color maybe. Say I'll go for a darker green color. Okay, this particular region of yours is completely dealing with the oxygenated blood. Clear? So deoxygenated on the right hand side, oxygenated on the left hand side. Now how is the functioning of the heart going to take place? From the upper part of your body means your head and all the parts present in the head, shoulder regions. From there the blood is drained, is brought into the region which is, I'll choose a black color, that would be better, which is said to be, this particular region is entirely brought from the upper part of your body. From the upper part of your body, when you get the blood, it is more of, it is deoxygenated, which is drained from the upper part of the body by the vena cava. This is called the vena cava. From the upper region, it is called superior vena cava, and from the lower region, it is called the inferior vena cava. Is that point clear? So from these two regions, the blood is brought and it is emptied into the right auricle. Clear? Right atrium. What type of blood is coming over here? Deoxygenated, means minus oxygen. At the same time, when this process is going on, filling up of the right auricle is going on, at the same time the left atrium or the left auricle is also being filled up. But who is filling that particular region? Well, it is the vein, pulmonary vein. Pulmonary, this particular term stands for, this pulmonary term stands for from the lungs, related to lungs, associated with lungs. So the blood from the lungs is brought in to the left atrium. What type of blood will come over here? Oxygenated. From the lung, of course, it will be oxygenated. So oxygenated blood is poured into the left atrium. So what will happen now finally? Both the atriums, that is the right atrium and the left atrium, both of them will become full. So once they are full, at that time they will undergo contraction. The contraction of the auricles will result in the opening of this particular junction. This is called the valves. Now you know what is the importance of these valves in the heart? Yeah, it is to prevent the reverse flow of blood. Reverse flow means when the auricles are contracting, when the ventricles are contracting, the blood shouldn't go back to the auricle. So therefore there are valves provided to prevent that reverse flow. In between the right auricle, you will find that the valve which is present is said to be the tricuspid valve. Okay. Here you have tricuspid valve. There are 3 flap valve in the right hand side. And on the left hand side, it is called the bicuspid valve. 2 flap valve it will be. This side it is 3 flap valve, this side it is 2 flap valve. Okay, so that will, when the auricles are contracting, when these auricles are contracting, at that time these valves are pushed open and the blood, okay, the blood will start moving into this region. From the right auricle or the atrium, it will move into the right ventricle. And from the left atrium, it will enter into the left ventricle. Is that point clear? So what will happen at the end of that process? The ventricles become full. This region will become full now. So when ventricles are in a expanded phase, at that time atrium or the auricles are in the contracted phase. Now it's the turn for the ventricles to contract. So when the ventricles contract, at that time the auricles expand. Is that point clear? So when ventricles are contracting, auricles are in expansion phase. Due to the contraction of the ventricles, what happens is the blood from the right ventricle, what type of blood is it? It is minus oxygen. This blood is pumped into this region. Can you see this region? This region is said to be the region which is carrying the blood from the right ventricle to the lungs, because this is deoxygenated. So without oxygen, so that has to be carried to the lungs for oxygenation. So it is carried via the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary word I gave you just now, it is associated with lungs. So the artery carries the blood to the lungs for oxygenation. At the same time, the blood from the left ventricle, this is with oxygen I told you. So where should it go? Yeah, it should go to the remaining part of the body. So the blood will enter into this region, and then from there it will move into this region. This is called the main aorta. Aorta stands for the main artery which is supplying the blood to different parts of your body. Did you understand this full thing? Okay. So if I want to sum up the whole matter in a chart form, then how will I sum it up? Let us understand it in this way. The blood from the upper part of the body and the lower part of the body, okay, from the upper region it is brought by superior vena cava. Okay, I am using the short forms over here, superior vena cava, and from the lower part it is brought by the inferior vena cava. Both these together will together pour into which region of the heart, you know? It will pour into the right auricle. Okay, right auricle, right atrium. At the same time, when this process is going on, at the same time, the blood from the lungs that is brought by the pulmonary vein, and that is poured into the left atrium. Is that point clear? That is poured into the left atrium. Now what will happen? Now the blood from the right auricle and from the left auricle. When these auricles are in the contraction phase, this blood will move into the right ventricle, and blood from the left auricle will move into the left ventricle. Due to contraction of the right ventricle, the blood will be allowed to move into the pulmonary artery. Okay, and from pulmonary artery, it will reach the lungs for oxygenation. Is that point clear? Whereas from the left ventricle, it will enter into main aorta. And from the main aorta, what will happen? It will pass to different parts of your body. Is that point clear or not? This is how you sum up your circulation part. Understood? So that is explained over here. A very quick look into that. I'm just underlining it very, very quickly. Heart is a muscular organ size of a fist. It carries oxygen and carbon dioxide. The heart is a muscular organ, as we have learned, size of a fist. The next is it has chambers, different chambers, to prevent the oxygen rich blood from mixing with the other one. Blood containing carbon dioxide from here. The carbon rich blood has to reach the lungs for carbon dioxide to be removed, and the oxygen blood from the lungs has to be brought to the heart. Is that point clear? So this particular process takes place where? In the lung region. So there it has to be transported. So these processes are followed. Your answer starts from, if they ask you explain the process of circulation of blood, then your answer starts from here. Is that point clear? The oxygen rich blood from the lungs comes by the thin walled chamber of the heart on the left. That is the left atrium. The left atrium relaxes when it is collecting this blood. It then contracts while the next chamber, left ventricle, expands so that the blood is transferred to it. When the muscular left ventricle contracts its turn, the blood is pumped out of the body. The deoxygenated blood comes from the body to the upper chamber on the right. That is the right atrium as it expands. As the right atrium contracts, the corresponding lower chamber, the right ventricle, dilates. This transfers the blood to the right ventricle, which in turn pumps it to the lungs for oxygenation. Clear? So if you are not comfortable with writing this particular way answer, then you should remember what I explained just now in a chart form. Do you remember that? Or directly this diagram, you should know how to explain it out. Clear till then? The diagram part of it, once again, I am just trying to sum it up very quickly. You will just pay attention over here. If the blood circulation of blood in the heart is asked, you will say that the blood from the upper part of the body and the lower part of the body is brought by the vena cava, superior vena cava over here and the inferior vena cava over here. They together empty it into the right auricle. Okay. At the same time, the blood from the lungs is brought by the pulmonary vein and it is emptied into the left auricle. When the auricles are contracting, at that time from the right auricle, the blood will move into the right ventricle and the blood from the left auricle will move into the left ventricle. When the ventricles are in a contraction phase, from the right ventricle, it will move into the pulmonary artery for carrying the blood to the lungs for oxygenation. Is that point clear? And from the left ventricle, the blood will be pumped over here into the aorta, from where it will be carried to different parts of the body. Is that point clear? So this is how you sum up the answer. Okay, come on. Now there is another important diagram which comes up over here. What is this diagram about? Here you find what I explained earlier. The same thing is put up over here. This is your right hand side of the auricle. This is your left hand side of the auricle. So what happens over here is the blood from different parts of the body. This is the vena cava, which is bringing the blood into the right auricle, and then from there it moves into the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, the blood moves to the lungs for oxygenation. Oxygenated blood from the lungs is brought to the left auricle, and from the left ventricle, the aorta comes out. Okay, and it supplies the blood to the different parts of the body. At the same time, the blood from the right ventricle is brought to the lungs for oxygenation. Is that point clear or not? Since the blood, here there is a very, very important statement. Since the blood rushes through the heart twice in each cycle, this type of circulation is called double circulation. Clear? Another important question which can be put up over here is the separation. First of all, why should the left and the right side be separated in us? The reason over here is the separation enables that the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood is not mixed, because in higher animals they require tremendous amount of oxygen. They are more energetic, especially the birds and the mammals. They move around actively, so their expenditure of energy is more, requirement of oxygen is more. For this purpose, the left and right side the blood shouldn't be mixed up. For that, in the heart, there is a arrangement that the left side and the right side remain totally separate from each other and there is no mixing of blood. Is that point clear? Whereas in animals which are slightly the lower order, that is the amphibians and the reptiles, they will have three chambered hearts where some amount of mixing can be tolerated. Whereas if you come down to still lower animal, that is the fishes, they will have only two chambers, one auricle and one ventricle. So there, their body physiology is such that it doesn't make any difference if the blood gets mixed up. Is that point clear? So, but in case of vertebrates, you find that the type of blood circulation is called the double circulation. Clear till here? So that is all about the structure and function of the heart, working of the heart. Clear? Sometimes only diagram of structure of heart is asked, that is 6.10, which you have come across over here. This particular figure of 6.10, you'll have to practice it. This is for the structure part of it. Only diagram is asked, this is to be written. But if the structure is asked to be written in the theory section, then you will say that heart is made up of 4 chambers, which is made by the longitudinal and the transverse section. And you name the chambers and the valves which are present over there. That will be the structure part of it. Function part of it will be what I made you all mark over here. From here the function part starts till, from there till, I'll just make it smaller so that you'll get a better idea. From here your answer ends till here. Okay, that is the working of the heart. But if you are not comfortable with this writing part, then as I explained in the chart form, you can write it down. Is that point clear till here? Okay. So in the next video, we will continue with the second part of this transportation topic. Understood or not? Okay.